Once and for all, what is the best gaming monitor? Okay, so welcome to my ghetto monitor testing lab. So I've had a few days now to test all of these monitors. I've been playing games on them, and I feel like I have a really good, firm grasp on what to recommend for which situation. Now, I don't use any scientific tools here. This is all subjective based on just me playing the damn game. Now, should you take my advice based on just me playing the game? I'll leave that up to you. If you're happy, I'm happy. Now, I don't script my videos at all on this channel, but there's actually so much information to cover here that I actually had to make bullet points for all the things that I want to say. Now, the goal of today's video, you are a high-end gamer, whether it be single player, multiplayer, esports driven, what have you. Which of these monitors is best for you depending on what your goal is or what your situation is. Now, just a quick recap of the specs of these three monitors here. This one over here is the Asus 360Hz 1440p, right? This is the one everyone kind of gawked over here in the past few months. This one in the middle here, this one is the Samsung Neo G8. This one is a 4K 240Hz mini LED. This one over here is the new LG Ultra Gear 27-inch OLED. This is the new kid on the block. Now, all three of these screens can do esports and single player games very well. It's not like a 25-inch 1080p screen where you want to just die every time you try and play a single player game, right? Now, the first point to cover that's the easiest is the build quality. Now, the crown goes to the Asus 360Hz. By far the sturdiest stand, build quality, everything about it is the best. You can comfortably play with this screen on your desk and not have to worry about shake at all. The Samsung Neo G8, however, is by far the worst. You basically cannot use this monitor if you're playing mouse. Check this out. So I got the mouse. You see, look at this. Me moving the mouse wobbles the screen, how flimsy it is. So if you get this one, you basically have to wall mount it or swivel mount it on a separate piece of furniture so that your mouse movements don't affect the screen. It's really bad. The OLED here is kind of right in the middle of the two. It's sturdy enough to play on a really solid desk. Make sure that the desk you're playing on doesn't have any move to it, and then you'll be fine. But if it's a really flimsy desk, you'll get a bit of wobble too. Now, I know you guys are tired of hearing this, but this video was brought to you by the supporters. There's what, $4,000 worth of monitors here. No product samples, all purchased with supporter-backed money. There's no corporate agendas here. I'm only trying to provide you guys with value, and that's what your support money goes towards. And honestly, it's just really cool to be able to buy shit and just test it. I'm not gonna lie, it's awesome. And I get to do it without having stupid bullet points that I have to cover from some company. So you can trust that the information that I'm giving you is all my opinion, nobody else's behind the scenes. Hi, what are you doing? What are you doing? Say hi to the camera. My grumpy kitty, say hi. Who's my grumpy kitty? Who's my chunky kitty? Okay, baby. Okay, baby. There you go, baby. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the ease of use. Now, you might not think that's important, but it actually is. What I mean by ease of use is kind of the OSD and the settings and the configurability, right? So if you go to the Asus here, this one wins in terms of how many things you can customize on the screen for your personal benefit here, right? So you just go into the picture settings here. There are 4 or 5 options here for literally every single setting. Overdrive, Game Plus, Image, Variable Backlight, Blue Filter, Black Booster. You name it, there's like 6 different options for it, right? So if you're hard stuck bronze 5, get out of there. You don't need to test every single percentage of contrast ratio, okay? It's not that serious. Just set it and forget it. So for the Neo G8, you're going to be more focused on dialing in those black levels and brightness levels and the local area dimming of the mini LED. In terms of esports, you turn on the adaptive sync and you leave it alone. It does everything for you, basically. Now, the OLED here on the right doesn't even have an OSD. It took me a while to figure it out. Basically, you have to plug in the USB cable, install the driver, and install the LG OLED software to get this window of the OSD, which I can't set up right now because it's in screen mirror mode, but if I go extend, then it'll pop up, right? Then once you do that, your options here, you basically have 3 of them. You turn on adaptive sync, brightness, and black stabilizer. That's it. You can't change anything on this monitor whatsoever. Again, that could be a pro or a con, right? Because this screen is an OLED, the response times are so fast, it doesn't really need overdrive settings or any of that nonsense, right? It just works. You don't have to do anything. It's perfect all the time. For me personally, that's a huge pro of this monitor. I hate dicking around with settings. I just want that thing to be perfect out of the box, right? Which this screen does very well. So if you're a guy that's Googled DPI deviation before, you're gonna want a monitor that will prevent you from deviating from playing the game. If you know what the word Kovacs means, then you're going to want a monitor that prevents you from wasting as much time as possible. If you know what an RTL or IOL is. Now, I guess the biggest complaint that people have of this monitor over here is the matte finish. And I'll say that it's kind of a nothing burger, more of like a, I would say it's more of like a junior bacon cheeseburger kind of thing. Now, the only reason why people are upset because it has a matte finish, those of us that like our OLEDs, we're OLED enthusiasts, maybe if you want to call us, the only reason we can tell the difference is because we have OLED TVs, so we know what an OLED could look like, right? But I will tell you that having a matte finish does not take away from this monitor whatsoever. Now, that's not to say that it wouldn't look better with a glossy finish. It definitely would. Like, just as I'm running the benchmark here, it looks a bit flat. It's hard to describe, but if you're actually just playing games, it still looks stunning. I would not let the matte finish prevent you from buying this. It really is a nothing burger. You'll have to trust me on this one. It does look stunning. It just doesn't look as good as an OLED TV does, right? If you actually have that 42-inch Asus one or whatever, the 42-inch LG, that one does look much better when watching movies on it, right? If you're just a gamer, don't worry about it. So I'm going to kind of get out of the way of the picture here, but the next thing we're going to talk about is the screen brightness and the picture quality, right? So you can tell right away, the one in the middle here, the Samsung G8, by far has the brightest screen. And that's my favorite thing about this monitor is how bright the screen is. But look at the picture quality of the OLED over there on the left. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. These 3 may look fine and dandy to you guys based on what the camera's picking up, but here is the big problem that I have with the OLED. So this is the maximum brightness for all 3 of these screens, okay? Now, this one over here, the brightness is a big issue. Like this is like, man, I wish I could portray this better to you guys, but this, the maximum brightness of this screen is so dim, it basically makes it unplayable unless you're playing in a dark room. I know that seems like an exaggeration, but the brightness is a big problem. I'm hoping LG can release a firmware to increase the brightness somehow. I'm not sure if they can do that. But basically, the brightness of this screen is a deal breaker for me. I would not be able to play on this one because there's no brightness, man. Now, here's another problem with the brightness of this screen, right? So you can tell here, the contrast ratios on this one are the best. Check out the brightness of the stars here. Look at the bottom, it's pitch black, right? Now, if you go over here, it's kind of the same thing, except the stars are much dimmer, right? Now, the next thing I wanted to say, if you're playing, let's say, Warzone, and you are against a rose skin, remember the old rose skins in Warzone 1? And they would kind of prone on staircases and you couldn't see them in shadows? This screen makes that problem way worse. So the black levels on this one are so black that you actually have to go into the OSD, like the thing I showed you earlier, and you have to crank the black equalization almost to the maximum. And then which case, that makes the blacks kind of gray, similar to the Asus over here. You can kind of see how the blacks are kind of washed out and there's a white layer over them. It's kind of a necessity for esports to have washed out blacks. It's just a fact of life, right? If you're playing in a competitive game and you enter a dark house, you need to be able to see the black corners, right? Now, if you leave this screen on its default settings, the blacks are so black that you can't see the corners at all. So then what's the point of buying an OLED if you have to crank out the black stabilizer so much to where the blacks end up gray anyway, right? So that's why I would not recommend this one for esports specifically, because it defeats the purpose of having an OLED if you have to crank the brightness, crank the contrast, and crank the black equalization, right? You're washing out the screen on purpose so that you can see shit. Now, you could argue that you can go into the OSD and just like turn off black equalization when you play a single player game, crank it up when you play a multiplayer game, right? Fair enough. But when it comes to anything involving a hassle to enjoy my gaming, again, a deal breaker for me. It just has to work, right? This screen here is definitely esports oriented. Playing single player games on this one is not the best experience. It's good, don't get me wrong, but you're playing with washed out colors all the time because you cannot compare the color accuracy and the picture quality of this one versus these two, right? It's not even the same ballpark. Also, this one is 4K and it just looks absolutely stunning. The Neo G8 is definitely the best hybrid monitor if you want an all-in-one, but the biggest problem is it's 32 inches, right? So you're never gonna be at the top of the game in terms of competitiveness level at 32 inches. But if you're a casual pleb and you can drive a 4K 240, you have a 4090, right? Then this is definitely the way to go. Now we're gonna talk about motion clarity and pixel response in terms of esports. Okay, so Overwatch here, right? Look at how damn dark that screen is. It is brutal. And that's the maximum brightness, by the way. That's as high as it goes. It's brutal. This one, by far, you can see the most, and then this one obviously is a good blend of the two, right? So, motion clarity. Now, you will not be able to see anything on your guys' screen because I'm capturing the video in 60 FPS, right? You won't, so you're gonna see the same across all three. Now, what you might be able to see is the mouse response time between the three. Neo G8 in the middle here, the scope is maybe a millisecond or two slower than the other two. Now that is due to my local area dimming settings that I used on this screen. I use this screen for single player games, so the local area dimming does make it lag a little bit more, right? If you turn it off, it fixes it pretty much, right? Now, the OLED and the 27-inch Asus over here, they look pretty identical to me. You also have to keep in mind I'm using 120 hertz right now. That's the only way to display it on all three of these screens, right? Now, if I'm actually playing the game, the Asus still wins. The LG OLED is still a 240 hertz. It's still slower. Now, whether or not you'll be able to tell is a different story. Again, if you're a Bronze 5 hard stuck, it might not matter to you. But for me, I can 100% tell that the Asus is by far, not by far, it's definitely, it's faster enough that it bothers me that going back to 240 hertz is what I'll say. Now, when it comes to pixel response time and motion clarity, if you're playing at 240 hertz or below, the OLED has the best pixel response time and motion clarity, definitely. if you actually play at 360 hertz and you can actually achieve 360 hertz, like I have it locked at 359, the Asus still has the best motion clarity. The OLED, we were all kind of hyped about the new OLED coming out, the new 0.03 milliseconds response times. Everyone was like, the OLED is going to be a game changer. I will tell you, nothing has changed. Golden rule number 1, nothing ever changes. Which is alarming or surprising. Maybe it's alarming. I thought OLED was going to be a lot better than it actually was. Like, so you know how people are saying 240 hertz OLED is kind of feels like 360 hertz? No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It feels like a 240 hertz. So I play on a 1080p 360 hertz screen, right? When I tried playing on this, I was like, God damn, this feels slow, man. It felt slow. It's hard to describe, man. It felt like a downgrade compared to my 360 hertz 1080p. I play Overwatch though, so the resolution doesn't matter. The 1440p doesn't help you in Overwatch. The refresh rate does. That's how I already know I'm gonna enjoy that 500 hertz 1080p much more, right? So when you run this screen at 360 hertz, it definitely is more competitive in esports than this one. Now, there's another feature here on this Asus 360 hertz 1440p, and this feature, in my opinion, is probably a game changer for me personally. Look at what happened to the screen when I put it in 1080p mode. When you put the screen in 1080p mode, it's actually like 1330p. It puts a black border around the screen and converts it into a 25-inch screen. Now you have a 1440p pixel density image in a 25-inch 360 hertz screen. So I've been playing on this monitor, and this feature makes the price of this monitor worth it for me. It's a game changer. Absolute game changer. What's the one thing esports players have wanted forever? A 25-inch 1440p high refresh screen. We have it, and it's as good as we thought it would be. This monitor is the esports GOAT right now. It still is. The PG27AQN. This one wins for esports among all metrics. Now, some people might say, but Jufus, but Hoodoo's, the BenQ Zowie has the Diac black frame insertion. I don't give a shit. 1440p, 360 hertz, 25-inch. So when I play Warzone or Apex Legends on this one, I can see a mile away now in a 25-inch screen. You don't understand. I wasn't going to keep this, but now I am. And if you're a COD bro and you like to go both ways, right? Let's say you're playing Warzone and you actually want to use the 27-inch screen with the controller and sit back a little bit. Go ahead. Let's say you want to jump on some Overwatch or some Valorant. You need to go 25-inch 360 hertz. Go ahead. Man, I know I sound excited because I am, but like, and you know what I thought would bother me? I thought the black border but the 27-inch screen would bother me. Didn't bother me at all. My eyes got used to it in about 30 seconds. It's just like playing on my 25-inch. So yeah, this one was actually worth me upgrading my 360 hertz monitor for. Now here's the problem this is kind of an aside, but here's the problem that I'm going to face going forward. When that 500 hertz monitor comes out, it's going to be like going back to 1080p from a 1440p 360 hertz. Now we're back to compromises again. Right now, in this moment in time, this screen is the best, but if you're a Valo and Overwatch only player, it might still be worth waiting for that 500 hertz, right? But if you're a hybrid COD bro, Overwatch, all-around player for let's say you play all types of esports, that's the winner. Now, you have to keep in mind that if you're going to be driving 1440p 360 hertz, you need to have a top-of-the-line rig, max overclocked, with a 4090 to be able to drive that much resolution and that much FPS out of the screen. If you can only drive 200 FPS, this is pointless for you. This monitor is for the rich. No sugarcoating. It's for the rich people. Okay, now, the 240 hertz screens here. 240 hertz is much more easily achievable. Just go buy a Ryzen 3D CPU and you can do 240 hertz with some crappy RAM with zero tuning, right? That's the whole point of that CPU. Now, for this one, for 4K 240, you really do need that 4090, right? Now, here is the thing about this monitor. You don't. Now, here is the greatest strength, greatest argument for buying this monitor. It's 1440p 240 hertz OLED, which obviously, you don't need to buy a new graphics card. And you get the same, if not better, visual fidelity than a 4K 240 hertz does in single player games. So if you have a 3080, a 6800 XT, in kind of in that range, a 2080 Ti, let's say you're still rocking a 2080 Ti, instead of spending $1,800 on a 4090, you can just buy this. And you get the same fidelity increase than you would a graphics card. So you can actually think of this monitor as like the 5800 X3D of monitors. You buy it, you stick it on the desk, it does everything, you don't have to touch shit, which is really nice. That's the biggest pro to this thing. So let's say you're still on like a 3080 Ti or a 3090 or something, right? Let's say you are a Warzone player and you do like your occasional single player AAA title, right? Instead of going and buying a 4090, you go and you buy this thing. The only real hassle you have to dick around with is the black stabilizer. When you want to go play Warzone, you crank it up. When you want to go play a nice single player game, you turn it back down to 0. And that's all you got to do. And you just saved yourself, what, $1,500+ on a new generation of graphics card. This monitor eliminates the entire need for a GPU upgrade. The picture quality and the response time are so good that it also eliminates the need for memory tuning, buying a new CPU, dicking around with the BIOS screen. So, you see where I'm going with this? If you're a plug-and-play user and you just want to play games and you hate dicking around with shit, this is the choice. It really is. Now, it is my understanding that Asus is releasing their own version of the OLED with a brighter screen, I believe. You might want to wait for that one because the brightness on this one is a deal breaker for me. You might have to test it out yourself to see if it is for you. This is a moderately lit room. Not too crazy, obviously you can see, right? And it's definitely too dim for me. It really is. It might not be for you though, right? Now, let's say you're a low-spec gamer too. Let's say you're playing on 5 or 6-year-old hardware as well. The response time of the OLED pixels is so fast that even if you're getting 100 frames a second in 1440p, it'll still look really good, right? So this monitor eliminates the entire need to change anything in your PC. So you could actually think of this monitor as saving you money if you want to. That's how good this one is for that purpose. So to summarize then, if you are a non-overclocker, you're a budget gamer, mid-range and down, you don't have any money, you don't really have any interest in a BIOS screen, 240 FPS, whatever, this choice is for you. If you want the maximum single player fidelity, 4K 240 hertz, ray tracing, HDR, you want the bee's knees of single player fidelity, the Neo G8. If you are purely an esports player, you're all into that PC optimization, the defragging, the SSD and all that shit, and you're into the OSDs and all that. For maximum competitive gaming across all games right now, this one wins by far. best motion clarity, best pixel response time, best resolution combination, and the highest refresh rate. But it does still suck for single player games though. It doesn't suck, but you can't compare this to these two when it comes to single player. Very high contrast ratios really does make colors pop, right? This is just washed out to shit, so it's not a single player monitor, but for esports only competitive gaming, this is the GOAT. Now, when it comes to burn-in on this one, I don't know. They haven't been out long enough, right? So I can't really comment on it. It probably will burn in eventually. There's no getting around that. I don't know, right? So that's why I'm not going to comment on it. If this monitor over here was maybe 50 to 100 nits brighter, then it would be the best all-around monitor. Actually, I can probably still say it probably still is the best all-around monitor, right? It does esports fairly well. It does single-player games very well. No OSD messing around, no FAFOing, none of that shit. You just plug it in and forget about it. If you do decide to go for the OLED here, make sure you're a degenerate living in mom's basement with the lights off. But for those of us normal humans, definitely by far too dim of a screen for me though. Now, if you're like me and you have to have the right tool for the right job in every single scenario, affiliate links down below. So, best for esports, best for single player games, best for saving money in all-in-one. Remember guys, this video was all subjective, okay? I played with these things for about a week in every different type of game and scenario. So that's basically what I'm basing all of this information off of. And if you like the content, hit that subscribe button, do all that YouTube SEO stuff, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Please say thank you to the supporters of the channel. Cannot run it without them, cannot bring you this unbiased info without them. And I will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you later.